a very kind intro. So I have the privilege of being probably the oldest speaker that you'll have today. Otherwise, I couldn't possibly have been at those companies for so long, or I'd have had to start really young. The irony of my speech today, having spent so long in tech, is we always got told, you know, you can't really talk about the tech, people aren't interested. You can see how interesting one of the speeches can be when you're talking about technology and what it can do for the future. But we're also taught about telling stories. And the stories that you've heard before me have been really personal. And I work with a very talented storyteller, creative writer, and graphics artist who did my slides today, Sarah Bennett. And Sarah said, right, what's your opening story going to be? And we want to talk to you overall about how you simplify and create profitable sustainability. It won't work unless we have all of these elements. And the story we decided to open with was a shopping experience, because lots of people can relate to it. It doesn't matter whether it's shopping for clothes, shopping for electronics, whatever it is. But the irony is my story came true this morning. So shopping under pressure is the worst kind of shopping that you could possibly do. When you're going to a wedding and you've got to find, you know, the shirt that goes under your DJ or the dress that you really wanted, and you're under pressure to find the right dress, the right shirt. And my husband said to me yesterday, don't make the same mistakes. You heard as well that you make the same mistakes again and again. Make sure you know what you're going to wear the day before. So I did, and I found what the top that I was going to wear, and I made sure it was washed and ironed, and it was on a hanger. And then this morning, we set off. We live in the Cotswolds, and we set off to come up here. And I messaged Sarah and said, we're on our way. We'll be with you shortly. We're leaving now. And I have a fairly large car because of kids, other people's kids, the large dog living in the countryside, carrying stuff around. And I closed the automatic door. And as it closed, it hit the hanger, and the shirt fell and got crushed by the door. So all that planning that I'd put in meant that I then had to go and buy something under pressure. And because I work in sustainability, I try very hard not to go shopping too often, because part of sustainability is using what we need and not frivolous shopping. And so my story is not just true, but incredibly apt for today. So you run into the department store hoping that you'll find something, and you think you've got to buy something sustainable because you're talking about sustainability today. So you really must find something that's sustainable. So you think, okay, where will I find these sustainable items? And I go over to the green zone, and they all look like linen, brown and boring, and I'm not going to wear that on stage to do my talk. Now, the good news is that's not actually true. Sustainability does not have to mean brown and boring. What it does have to mean is carefully looked after, carefully chosen, the whole supply chain being really well thought about. So my next challenge was I looked at the variety of different labels because I wanted to make sure that this was, after all, sustainable. And the different items had a wonderful plethora of labels. Lots of leaves, lots of pictures of trees, lots of things saying that this is sustainable, this was sustainably sourced, this was sustainably made, this was ethically made. But I don't know what any of that means. And I thought, I'm going to have to go and do some research before I can choose any of these items to make sure this isn't greenwashing and that this isn't something that I'm going to buy into just because it's got a couple of leaves on it. And actually, it is, no such thing. So I got out my laptop, in fact, it was an iPad, and I looked at what I could do label-wise to ensure what I was buying was truly sustainable and ethical. I care about both. And what I found was this amazing website that showed you all the different labels in the UK and what they mean. And I won't make you count them, but there are 455 different eco-labels. And the site's amazing. It tells you all sorts of things about them. And some of them are massively important. They tell you things about what the product is made from, how it was made, who made it. They talk to you about the quantities of water that's been used, about the land usage, the water usage, how the environment was managed for biodiversity. And these things are really critical if you're designing a product. They're really important that you take these things into account. But from a consumer's perspective, most of you, some of you in the room may be scientists, but most of us when we go shopping, we haven't got a science hat on. And we need something that's much more simple. And I realised that simplicity is something that doesn't often go hand in hand with sustainability. So from that story, I just want to take you into a couple of terminology usage that's out there in the world today that we might need to actually reframe. We might need to think about ourselves in different ways. The first one is purpose. Purpose has been hijacked by lots of companies. And we have consultants going out saying, you've got to find your purpose. What's your purpose? And the reality is your purpose may be to be the best energy company in the world, serving an underserved community. And your job may be that, you know, as part of that, as your personal role, you're trying to figure out how to do that in the best way possible. But purpose doesn't have to mean that we all work in sustainability and that that is our main purpose. In fact, what's important is you find your purpose as a company, and if it's not to create sustainability in the world, but in fact to be the best energy company, and you'll notice that a lot of energy companies, they used to be called oil and gas, and they've moved because a lot of them are really trying to figure out how to create renewable energy that's less damaging for the world. And this is a multi-decade task that they've taken on. And they get slammed for, how they've renamed themselves as an energy company. But actually, it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing that they're moving from oil and gas to energy and that they're thinking in a different way. But the challenge here is not always and only about what's your purpose, but it's also about how. And sustainability is about how. And when we think about the purpose of our company, we're thinking about the benefit that that brings. And companies have spent many, many years looking at how they make money. Their job is to create revenue, to create profits. Those financial profits allow them to make more money, to buy more machines, to make more things, to pay more people, to give a return to their shareholders, a financial return. So what if we think about that word profit in a different way? And some of you, because of the studies that you're doing, or just because you're well read, or because it really interests you, because you're definitely a generation lower than me, is you're thinking about what's known as the triple bottom line. And that changes from even when people started talking about people, planet, and profit, to actually framing it as a financial profit, societal profit, and environmental profit. And that's really important that we think about how is it that we can do that. So find your purpose and then really think about your how. Reframe what you think of in terms of your profitability and think about how you create profit in potentially a different way. And if we get this wrong, we know that we break environmental sustainability, environmental profit. If we get it wrong, we know we break societies. And actually what's really encouraging and does give me hope is your generation are the ones that are saying, actually, to that company, if you don't do this in a way that's good for society and it's good for the environment, we're not going to buy your stuff anymore. Or we'll change supplier. We'll change who we buy that service from. And that means that eventually that company is not financially sustainable either. So that's the end of them. So to do this, we really need to think about how we change our perspective of profit, because it's very hard to change your perspective once you've got that in your mind. You've been given lots of information, you've created what is your version of truth, and you know very much what it is that you're here to do. And we all look at things in one way. We can't help it. That's what we're programmed to do. Take some information in, make a decision. So the Japanese have something called kintsugi, and if you take a look at this bowl from this angle, this looks like a pretty bowl. It's going to be useful. It's a bowl. But now if we look at it further down, it's actually broken. So this bowl is now, we're thinking about this in a different way because we've got new information now about this bowl and it's broken. So there's not a lot of use to us. It could be used as a mosaic going forward, but it's not going to be a lot of use to us in terms of putting something in it. Let's think about putting water in it. So we're now seeing it from a different perspective. So the next thing that the Japanese did was they mended it. And they used a form of lacquer to mend the product with. And they used to put this lacquer on, and people would give it back and say, you mended my bowl, but now it looks ugly and awful. So what they actually thought about was how could they make it more beautiful and more valuable than it was before you broke it. So they add gold dust into the lacquer before they mend it. And now it's actually got a higher value than it was before it was broken, which is fantastic. So that's the art of kintsugi. And that's where you change your perspective and you look at something in a different way than you saw it before, and you actually value something in a different way. And we need to begin changing our perspective and valuing society and the environment as much as we value profits when we're in a company. So I want to help you think and do an exercise to help you change your perspective. And you've all got a bit too comfy in your seats because you've been sat down for 2 speeches before me. So I'm going to get you up. So please stand up. I didn't tell the team that I was going to do this. You've all got to move your seats back because you've got all way too comfy. So stand up. Okay, and now everybody turn and look 90 degrees to your right. Now there's lots of you holding your hands up going, is that my right? Which one's my left? Which one's my right? Turn to your right. Follow everybody else. They're probably right. Maybe not. Okay. Now, the difference in what you see is pretty much like a supply chain. Before, you were in a slightly tiered structure. You could see down to me. You could see the top of people's heads. But now what you pretty much see is only the person in front of you, and you see them very clearly, or you may be too close to them. So actually, you can't see them very clearly because you've got too close to them, so those thoughts disappear. You can sit back down now. Now you've worked out your left from your right. So that change in perspective, when you're in a supply chain, you can't see to the end of the row. You can't see all the way down to the end of the row to see what's happening at the end of your supply chain. It's almost invisible to you. You make the decision about who you're going to buy from. As a consumer, you're deciding who you're going to buy from when you're in that shop, when you're trying to buy the top because you ruined the one this morning you were going to wear. And when you're in a buyer or you're a designer or you're doing something in your company where you purchase something or you make a decision on design, you just choose the next person over. You can't see necessarily what you're doing all the way down. And I realise this is a big problem for all of us. So I was lucky enough to be able to do some work. As Sarah said, I have the privilege of doing some work with and for Oxford University. So I did some research with Oxford. And one of the professors had moved to Cal State University, so it's great. I got to do a 3-month project with Cal State. And then we worked with some students at London Fashion College, Portsmouth University, Manchester University, to see if there was a match between what individuals really care about when they buy products and what the science says we need to care about for environmental and societal sustainability. And the good news is there is hope because there is a really good match across those different things from what the science says and what people really care about. And the first thing was factory processes. We want to know what goes on in that factory, what materials they're using, what chemicals they're using, what is it that's actually gone into the product that we're buying. As I say, it doesn't matter whether it's clothes or consumer products, toys, electronics, what goes into this thing that I'm buying. The second thing that people cared about is longevity. And if you think about it, the science says that the longer you keep a product, actually that's much better for the world. We're not consuming virgin materials all the time. We're not having to dig stuff out of the ground to do that. So how long can you make a product last for? And we had another interesting incident yesterday. My mother-in-law phoned and my husband said, you know, what's going on? What's happened this weekend? She said, my oven's broken. And we said, oh, that's a shame. Don't worry, we can come down and sort that out for you. That's a royal we. I won't have anything to do with this. Andy will be doing that. And then we had a debate as to how long that oven's been in. And it's been around longer than many of you have been alive. This oven was put in 35 years ago. She hasn't changed her kitchen. She enjoys where she lives. She's lived in the same place. And that oven's been around for 35 years. So when you hear the phrase, they don't make them like they used to, this is a great example of they don't make them like they used to. So longevity is really important. The next thing that's really important is recyclability and circularity. If you can create circular economies, then this is fantastic. Taking something, creating ownership for it, and it going back into your own system is wonderful. So we have fewer virgin materials being used, and we're truly creating a circular economy. But that's really hard to do. Recyclability is good. It's all part of it. It's not the most important thing, but if you can't do anything else with it, we don't want to go into landfill. Products that are recyclable are also good. The next thing is manufacturing miles. You imagine some of the products when you got up this morning and you showered, hopefully you did. If you look on the back tomorrow when you shower or tonight, and see how many ingredients are in that shower cream, how many ingredients are in your hair products. You'd be surprised, but there's lots of them. And they may come from many different factories just to get to somewhere. So the fact that your product was made here, actually it might have come in from 20 different places to be made there. And that's before it ships to you. Now, we all know, if it says where it's from, what countries are on the other side of the world from where we are. So we know that that's travelled a long way to get to us, but we're not aware of its travel in the first place. So industry clusters can be really important here, where things are made in one space. And lastly, something that's really important to me is company kindness. So kindness is a superpower. If you can be anything, be kind. And that doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's a soft thing to be kind and that you shouldn't do it and it's a sign of weakness. Soft is good. Soft is something that we can all relate to. There are many times where we wish somebody would come to us kindly and talk to us about something. Take us with them on their journey and be kind about it. So company kindness is hugely important as well. Now, many of you will know that out of those things that we talked about, on a given day, something may be more important to you than something else. So you may just have watched The Green Planet and you care greatly about biodiversity, or it may be that you've seen a really terrible thing happen and you care an awful lot about company kindness. You watched a terrible program where factories weren't treating people well, or some incidents going on in the world. There's a lot of examples at the moment. So company kindness might be something that's really important to you. And we thought this would be fantastic, and this is something that we really need to think about. So wouldn't it be great if there was a simple way across any product, across any item, across any brand, of sharing with the world? And I take you back to my struggle that I had with all the different but very important labels. And if all those things that were really important could be put into a way to simplify something so that when you go to choose it, you can see easily across those different factors the thing or things that are really important to you in traffic light coding, so that you know whether it's good, bad, or different. And I'd also encourage you to think about the difference when we're talking about purpose. That's what is it that we're going to do as a company and why? What's the benefit of that? So that's the gross positive. All benefits do have typically a cost to them. So take away the cost and you get profit. I want you to think in the same way about how we add in and we reframe. Think about how you're going to reframe this yourself in your companies that you're going to, these amazing master's programs that you're doing. You are going to be people of influence. Day to day when you spend, you are a person of influence. So think about profit for all, society, environment, as well as financial, because that's true sustainability, if you can be profitable over all of those things. And I would seriously encourage you to think about how you're going to change your perspective. What is it that you need to do? Stand up, turn right, have a look, and look all the way down to the people that you can't see and think about the impact that you have, so you can really create something, make decisions that are triple bottom line, sustainable for society, the environment, and financial. I want you to think about how, when as deeply as you do about digital transformation, think about your sustainability transformation. Thank you.